What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dual Sport Disc Sport YouTube channel. If this is your first time here and you like what you see today, make sure you subscribe. Today I got the X160. This thing has about 500 miles on it now, and I thought I was doing an upgrade by putting these RST Killer forks on here, and they're definitely not. Way softer than the original KKE forks. So we're going to put the KKEs back on. Also, I lost a Fender messing around in the parking lot, so we're gonna put a new Fender on. Got a few other things too, some tips to help your Segway X160 last a little longer, bolts, brake lines, stuff like that. So stay tuned. These are the stock fenders. They're pretty cheap though, and they really don't even cover up too much of the back area at all. When you're riding in the mud, it'll still shoot mud up at you, even with this little fender on here, but it's better than nothing. And then I also have this shock cover. This is going to go on the back shock because the rear mud flap actually broke off. The plastic's pretty cheap, so I'm going to just use the shock cover to try to protect that shock shaft. Going to start with the fender, so in order to do that I have to pull the seat off. You have 6 of these buttons on the outsides, and then there's also 2 more on the insides. So start with those. I'm using a chisel. Use whatever you think is appropriate, but a chisel works pretty good for me. Just make sure you don't lose these. I can't imagine where you would be getting new ones at, but they just come right out. There's the hidden one in there. Now there's one of those on both sides, so make sure you get them both. Okay, once those are pulled, I'm just going to pull down on this tray. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. And there's your seat bolts. You got 2 10mm here, 2 more up front. So I don't know if I actually have to take the seat all the way off to change the fender out, but I need to do some damage repair here. Let's pick this thing up. So I'm going to probably use some electrical tape on that one for now. Actually, I think Luna has the seats for like 30 bucks, but we're just going to tape it. Now that I have the seat off, you can actually see the construction of the bike, and I have to say it's pretty well built. I mean, it's got a perimeter aluminum frame, nice detachable subframe there in case anything were to happen. Looks pretty rigid all the way up. Plain and simple and easy. I really like this design here, how the primary is part of the swing arm, so that way, unlike a dirt bike, you always have the same chain tension. There's no tensioner needed, or chain guide, or any of that. You don't have to run your chain super loose because it doesn't tighten up as the spring compresses. Really cool. I really like the way the weight is distributed on the bike too as well. The motor is nice down low. The battery right in the center, you can pull it out when you're trying to change it out. Controller in the front. It's good layout. Very impressed. Alright, these fenders actually lock into the seat. It's really not a good design. I don't really care for that part of it. Just because the way it actually does, the fenders are pretty weak and they're very vulnerable to breaking at that exact same spot that mine broke because of the design. Nevertheless, we got to change it out. So to do that, you just kind of, you got to go forward with it. Fender's all back on. Got the tape on the seat. Looks pretty good. One thing I want to do, and I would highly recommend if you have one of these bikes, I just had this happen on my other one, but this brake line, the routing is pretty terrible, and it actually snagged. These are the stock tires, but especially if you get any wider tires, this thing's going to snag. So I'm just going to put a zip tie, and zip tie this to the inside of the swing arm, like that. Keep it out of the way, make sure there's ample room. I have this shock cover here. This is a Power Mad shock cover. It's just a small one, but it's actually way too big for this. It's like an ATV shock cover or something. But I'm just going to cut it along the bottom, kind of rough size it up, snip it, burn the ends off so it doesn't fray, and call it a day. Now it is time to get rid of these piece of crap RST killer forks. In my opinion, they are. I mean, that's just me, but you can't jump these things, so they gotta go. Time to pack these bearings. So just get a gob of grease if you're doing this at home. This is the old school way. Just kind of smack that bearing. That'll get bearing grease between the races, which is exactly what you want. It's a messy job though, so wear gloves. I have these KKE forks here. Again, I thought I was upgrading by getting the RST Killers, but definitely not. These things are actually pretty good stock. They are a separate function fork. So this is the rebound side. There is a little air valve at the bottom to fill up. This is the compression side, the other side here. And there's no adjustment on this one, so it's just straight. The rebound on this fork though, it's pretty impressive. Like, I'll turn it all the way slow. You'll see the difference. Look how slow that rebound is with it all the way slow. A couple clicks. So I mean, it actually is working. It's a usable fork. I thought it was a little bit more of an imitation fork. But yeah, so gonna put it back on. Alright, moment of truth. Once you get the axle on, or this front tire in general, it makes the bike a lot easier because it's a pain in the butt with no front tire on this motorcycle stand especially. Alright, the bike is pretty much all back together. The last thing I have to do is put the battery in it. I wanted to show this on camera in case this is your first time seeing a e-bike, but the Segways or the Surons, it's awesome. The batteries are pretty light overall, lithium ion. They just drop right in like so, and then I'm going to bring this camera closer so you can see. But there's two cords or two plugs. You have your power plugs, then your other plug, and this thing wants to fall off the stand. But once you get it connected, the last thing you do is flip the circuit breaker on, and then from there, latching it secures the battery in place. I did want to mention that if you do have one of these bikes and you buy it, make sure you check all the bolts or keep an eye on them at least, because they do like to loosen up. A lot of them are not Loctited, so I did go around and Loctite some of the bolts when I first bought it. But yeah, keep an eye on that, because I've had a few fall out. The front fender, these little shrouds up here, those loosened up. So just make sure you tighten up those bolts. That is a wrap on this video. If you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have all kinds of stuff coming out. Dual sport motocross, dual sport trail riding, anything, e-bikes, a little bit of everything, van life. So see you next time.